think like being privileged where I live, you don't necessarily see the outcome of plastic pollution. You don't necessarily see the outcome of the end consumer result. And I knew that plastic wasn't great because I started reducing at university.
Yeah.
But I didn't realize to the extent until I was actually in Asia. And I was like, oh, this is just crazy. It's just so much plastic on this one beach. And I was madly like trying to get up all the plastic. And I was so angry.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to the second episode of our NuOceans podcast. I'm Flavio, and I'll be hosting it today. And I am so excited to be here with Em from Brighton. She's an activist who shares a lot of tips about how to swap things for a more sustainable life and is fully committed to the mission, full of energy, full of peps. And I'm sure you'll be introducing yourself way better than that.
Thank you ever so much for having me. I'm super excited to be here. Yeah, hi everyone. My name's Em. I'm from near Brighton, and I am a founder of Energisewithem. And yeah, Energisewithem is about energy, but it's also trying to make people feel inspired and educated on how you as an individual can make sustainable swaps, so you feel more empowered to reduce your impact for this planet. But yeah, I don't know if you want me to talk about a little bit about where I'm from.
Yeah,
and my
I mean,
that kind of thing.
you know, it's great. Yeah, it's great to have you here. So thanks for coming on. And yeah, if you want to share kind of a bit about where you're from and what you do, and more importantly, why do you do what you do? What is it that made you want to start this Energisewithem to encourage people to make more sustainable swaps and have a more sustainable life?
Yeah, of course. I think context is really, really important, because I think I didn't just wake up one day and was like, right, today I'm going to be an activist. Today I'm going to do this. It's kind of been like a slowish journey of me educating myself and just kind of being more conscious. So I think to give context to how Energisewithem was started, I actually had an Instagram account before that, which was to do with kind of nutrition and food and trying to be more eating like healthy, because that's where my passion originally came from. About like, I played semi-professional football, and I was really into looking at kind of the types of food I was eating and trying to pick the foods that are most nourishing and best for your body.
Yeah.
And then I kind of was like on I think the kind of whole social media and Instagram thing came about, and people were putting so much online about veganism, and I was just a bit like, what is veganism? Like, what is this? And like, people keep talking about this concept, and they're producing such amazing food. And I was just like, oh my God, all these people are so fit and healthy and and they're eating such amazing food. And I was just like, this is great. Like, because I'd come from a sporting background. So I was kind of like interested in that stance of picking the best food for my body. And then I remember one day, the person that I was following, she put up this video to do with 100 reasons why to go vegan. And I watched it. And then I watched Cowspiracy. And then I was like, oh, I hadn't really ever considered like the food I was choosing, how that can have a bigger impact on like where I was coming from. Also, sorry, I'm getting really excited. I was like conscious I'm gonna be like, la, la, la. As you guys can probably tell listening, I've got a lot of energy, and I'm sorry if I'm speaking a bit fast. But yeah, and I think for me it was kind of then understanding, actually, it's not just about me nourishing my body and being a healthy human, it's how is the impact of what I'm choosing a bigger picture. So around 5 years ago, I went from like pescatarian to veggie, then vegan. So again, it was very slow. But then I started thinking about the environmental side of stuff. So veganism for me was like the gateway for being more conscious about sustainability in general, because I started thinking about how the correlation of like what you're choosing to the impact it has.
Yeah, of course. Yeah, mine was the exact opposite around. I started with the whole sustainability, always conscious about the environment, and I didn't go vegan for quite a long time. And then I knew the impact of meat and all that kind of stuff, but it was still something I wasn't willing to try, because I thought it was kind of hippie and weird. And then eventually I came across a bunch of documentaries as well, especially the what's it called now? Game Changers. That's the more recent one I watched. And that just showed me how you can be healthy, how you can be an athlete, as you mentioned, on a vegan diet. And that's when I was like, okay, I don't have any excuses anymore.
Yeah.
I can't be an environmentalist and then, eats like the most destructive food on the planet. So I just went, I went cold turkey.
Did you?
Yeah, from one day to the next, it was like gone.
No way. That's incredible. Like, that's crazy. I think people that do that, I'm like extra appreciation, because that's hardcore, but good for you. Yeah, I think The Game Changer as like a documentary, if anyone listening hasn't seen it, you have to go watch it.
Yeah,
like,
it's very good.
It does give a different perspective of looking at veganism, because I agree it does have that hippy dippy stereotype, which I feel like I'm becoming more and more like, which I'm like, no, but you can definitely be an athlete on a vegan diet. And I think that documentary just says it in itself, like the top of the top people performing best with this diet. So and it's it's better for your health, better for your body, and it's better for the planet. So it's win-win.
So from the vegan diet, vegan journey was your first foray into sustainability, and now sustainable swaps.
Yeah. So I was like, okay, I graduated in the summer of 2018. So I first went vegan at the beginning of my first year. And then throughout my time at university, I think living away from home, you kind of pick your own consumption choices. And I started thinking, right, I didn't agree with how I was eating. What's next? And it kind of started looking at slow fashion. So I started buying more into charity shops. And then I was like thinking about, okay, the packaging that the food's into. So I was at university and I started buying from a local fruit and veg shop, which was actually really cheap. It was a lot cheaper, actually. I was really surprised. Some fruit and veg shops, if it's more like the boutique organic, can be really expensive. But I think in certain areas, you can actually find food at a good budget and being better for the planet. So I started having more plastic free. And then, it started becoming more like lifestyle. And it's just kind of grown and grown and grown. But the pinnacle point of where I was like, okay, I need to do more. And that's where Energisewithem links in. So going back to the Instagram account, I was thinking, I was traveling and I was like in Vietnam and I was on this beach and I just couldn't get over how much plastic there was. I was just like, and like, I'm a big ocean lover. I live in Brighton. Like, I'm really connected to nature. And I think like being privileged where I live, you don't necessarily see the outcome of plastic pollution. You don't necessarily see the outcome of the end consumer result. And I knew that plastic wasn't great because I started reducing at university. Yeah. But I didn't realize to the extent until I was actually in Asia. And I was like, oh, this is just crazy. It's just so much plastic on this one beach. And I was madly like trying to get up all the plastic. And I was so angry. And for me, I'm very solution orientated and like to be positive. And I try and have hope in my work. Yeah. So I thought, right, enough's enough. I'm going to try and channel this energy in a positive way and actually try and educate people on the swaps I'd previously made up till now, because I realized I'd already done quite a lot, and that's quite a lot of journey and education I can give to others, which I learned through the veganism stuff when I first went vegan. And I think the power of social media and online communities is so great because you can learn from people. Yeah. So I was like, okay, at the beginning of January, I think if you guys go back and scroll down, I have a little stalk, you can find my video of me on the beach in Vietnam being like kind of annoyed at life at that point. But yeah, I then just changed my name to Energisewithem because I felt that just a healthy way didn't really fit what I was trying to achieve. And I was like, right, I want to have energy and do sustainable swaps. So yeah, 2019, when I came back from traveling, I started diving into the account. But for me, 2020 has been the year of like pushing it. And I did a pledge. So instead of setting a New Year's resolution that was to do with like me, like being fit or reading more books, I was like, I'm going to make my New Year's resolution bigger. So I just said, right, I'm going to do 52 videos in 2020 of #Sunday Sustainable Swaps and just do really informative, educational, energetic videos of talking about my journey. And then hoping that from my learnings, I can help spread that awareness. And I just really believe in the power of people and community. And yes, there's definitely a lot of systematic issues and policy change, but I think if enough people have the acknowledgement and awareness and education, then this will be like a momentum of more people actually practicing what they preach. Because I think it's good to shout and scream and protest about corporations, but I feel that you should start within and do the best version that you physically can. And I'm not saying everyone's going to be the same level, but I do believe that if you look at sustainability in a way which is more fun and exciting, and right, how can I make a swap this week, or how can I make, like, just look at yourself and try and make the mentality to be less about restriction and more about re-looking at a new way of potentially living. Because my journey, again, hasn't been, like I said, woken up one day and I'm vegan and I'm not buying into fast fashion and I'm got my bamboo toothbrush and all these things. It's been a journey, so I encourage others to start that wherever they're at, and just hopefully I can be that person that people can lean on if they need that help as well. That's kind of why I've got this channel, in a long way of saying it.
No, but that's really great, because I think as you mentioned, a lot of the time when people who don't really care too much about sustainability, or more to the point, they care, but they don't really know what to do or where to start. You look at others and immediately you can see someone who's like you, or other people I know who are already way down the line and who've already spent the last 2, 3, 4 years caring about what they do on almost a weekly basis. I mean, okay, now that I've dumped meat, now what am I going to dump next, and all that kind of stuff. And you look at them at the end of the journey and you're like, oh my God, I can never do all of that. And how do you expect me to be so sustainable? It's too much effort. And it looks like one big jump is too much effort, which you're totally right. I think it is. One big jump is too much effort. But once you start making these small swaps, it just becomes more natural. As you said, one thing's led to another. You started veganism, then slow fashion, then packaging, and then it's just one thing and the next. And that accumulated over the power of the community, the number of people, is definitely where the change is going to come from. I think you're totally right. And on that note, what would you think, what would be your top 3 pieces of advice for someone who wants to be more sustainable? Just the top 3 out of all those so many that you have.
I think for me, okay, 3. I did think about these before, but now I'm like, I've spoken about so many. I'm like, I definitely think that love what you've already got, treasure it and look after it. I think that there's a big sometimes expectation of what you should like when you're low waste, and like what you should like look like visually. I'll give you an example of what my water bottle is. I don't know if you're going to show this or not, but I'll explain it just for people who are listening. It's basically a flask that I just had in my house. I lost my water bottle and I was like, do you know what? I've got this massive flask and I'm not actually going to buy into a new water bottle because I currently have it. And I think for me, it's using what you've got, loving what you've got. And if you are going to buy into new, buy into something which you can imagine yourself having for a really long time. And it isn't just buying into a trend. I think that's applicable for clothing, for fooding, for like anything. I think it's a spectrum, and it's like, don't just buy because you feel like you need to fit into an ideology of what you should look like. It's actually like buying less is the best thing. And if you've already got something in your wardrobe, like wear it loads. Similar with if you've already got a load of, people say like, oh my God, I don't want to buy any plastic, but I've got all these like toothbrushes. I'm like, use them in some ways. Yes, it's not great, but it's better than being not used, because it's like, actually, we don't want a load of people to have a load of stuff in their home and then freak out that it's made in plastic and never use it. That's not the point. The point is that we need to try and move away from these more damaging ingredients and resources and methods. But if you've got stuff that's fast fashion, don't stop wearing it, wear it. Do you know what I mean? I think there's a big stigma around what you should look like. Actually, start within, and then I would say second one's probably food, because that's something that I talk about the most. I know I've already mentioned it, but I just think looking at the type of food it is, where it comes from, and waste. Because in terms of, I've spoken a lot about veganism, but that's something that I'm really passionate about, and think it's, even if you're not vegan, like I've got a statistic here which might help people just listening. So if you look at like a meat eater and how much they consume over a year and how much land that uses, it's equivalent to 2.5 rugby pitches, but of land. You can feed 6 veggies of that, or 18 vegans. So it just shows that from one person you could feed 18 vegans. I'm not saying everyone should go vegan, because I understand that that's not necessarily accessible for everyone. It might not be the right stage, but actually if you can just reduce the amount of dairy, meat and eggs you consume, that'll make a massive difference. Also looking at like where you're buying it from. I think there's a lot to talk about local and seasonal, because I think even being plant-based, I've learned a lot about, mangoes are vegan, but they come from the other side of the world.
Yeah, of course.
And there's so much in that, which I don't want to dive into too much, because I feel like I'll be here all day talking. And then waste and packaging, because obviously there's a lot of there's a lot of issues with food waste. So 1/3 of all food produced is waste. So even if you're vegan, but you buy loads of fruit and veg, but you don't use it, that's still negative impact on the planet because you're taking resources and not using it.
Yeah.
Looking at that. And then, yeah, I guess food waste as well in general. If you don't actually compost your food correctly, that has a really negative impact on the planet because if you just put the food waste into landfill, it produces methane, which is like 25 times more damaging than carbon dioxide. So even though if you're vegan and you're like, oh, I'm a vegan, but then you're like buying loads of fruit and veg and then you're not composting it correctly, like there's still ways in which within your food that you consume that can have better alternatives for the planet. So yeah, I think just looking, because I think food for me is we eat every day, and that's like the most thing that we're doing. Like most of us eat 3 meals a day if we're in a privileged position to be able to do that. And that's something for me that I think is, and the packaging involved with that as well. If you can move away from plastic, like I understand that there's a lot of single-use plastic going on in our supermarkets. If you can move away from that and try and buy more from bulk food shops, if you're able to do that, or just trying to get local produce that doesn't have the plastic in the packaging, trying to move away from supermarkets. I think food is definitely more my passion, and I realize that as this podcast has happened. But yeah, I think that's probably enough because I've probably spoken about a lot of advice.
So that's the first one was whatever you buy, make sure you keep it and you use it, especially if you already have it. Then look at what you eat, like where does it come from, what's the impact, reduce meat, dairy, eggs, and also buy local is what you mentioned. And then the last thing is all about food waste. So avoid making food waste and also packaging waste, both of those. I think you're totally right. Those are the big ones. And as you mentioned, food and eating is kind of what a lot of our cultures even evolve around. So it's definitely where we can reduce our impact on a very big scale. I mean, if you look at the fact that people die from hunger still all over the world, and you just mentioned that we could feed 18 people with one person's diet, it's just ridiculous that still happens right now. Yeah. And I think in many ways, the COVID situation has made it better and worse in some ways. So what would be your take on that? What's like your main lesson from this whole COVID pandemic? What are you taking home from now that we can start to see the end? I mean, I hope we're starting to see the end.
Yeah, I think we are finally. Like, how many months later? I kind of got a bit lost. When was it? Mid-March now? What? Mid-June? Yeah, God, it's been ages. I think I'm really hoping that people have learned about slowing down, having more of an understanding of where things come from, like a connection to what they're consuming, because I think because that has been taken away from us, people have then questioned where things have come from, because I think there is a massive disconnection. And a lot of people are like, why, especially at the beginning, I think it's less so now, but at the very beginning in the UK, everyone kept buying so much stuff, just kind of, they were scared. And then I heard through friends of friends, people just talking about things. They're like, yeah, it's made me be aware of where my food comes from, because I'm frustrated that I can't get all this food, but realizing it's not from the UK, or it's not seasonal, or it's not this. And I think that people hopefully will have just slowed down and making travel, I think another food as well, but also travel. I hopefully think that people are going to travel less through work, because it's showing that our economy, people can still go to work and use their laptops and connect more to business meetings and stuff. So I think it's just, hopefully it's a big reset in a lot of people's opinions on a lot of things. It does give me hope, but I also think there is a lot of change we still need to do, and people should just be assumptions of it and think, right, we've made these learnings. It's actually about how we apply them going forward after this happens. But I'm hoping that it's been a long enough period, people have had time to think about every area of their life and how they can actually reset that going forward.
Some of the good learnings, like, paying attention to where your food comes from, and traveling less, especially, a lot of people waste time in commute. Not only does it pollute a huge amount, but it's also not fun. Like, I don't know anyone who enjoys commuting in the car 1 hour to work. So I think you're right. If we can take some of these good learnings forward, that will look good for the planet.
Also, another thing, I know you only said one, but I think this is super important. Connecting with nature, because I think that people are doing more exercise outdoors and people aren't going to the gym, and I see so many people running, and I think that in itself, if people connect more from their hustle and bustle everyday life of commute and not, I think that's a really important part of actually time in parks, because we've been restricted to, we can only see people in parks or outdoor spaces. So there's been that adjustment. And I really hope the more people connect with the planet, the more people are going to love it and want to protect it.
Yeah, totally. So after you just said that, what is the impact you would like to see in the world? Like your impact. Say we're many years from now, down the line, all is said and done. What is what you would like to have seen?
So for me personally, I actually wrote a mission because I think it's good to have a little mission.
Yeah, no,
so
it is. It's really good.
For me, it's to inspire human happiness by increasing the connection between people and planet. I'm all about happiness, and I think the more that we as individuals collectively are connecting with each other and connecting with the planet, we're going to love and respect each other more, and equally that will equate to happy, healthy people and planet. So yeah, it's quite a big mission, but I think that if I work with lots of people and it becomes like a movement through what I'm doing on my Instagram channel, but also my events, that's what I want to see.
Yeah, no, it is a beautiful mission, and I think you're right. There's a lot of people moving towards one version or other of that mission, and it's all about the movement together. And I like to believe we will get there as well.
Yeah, I'm the same. I feel like when we did, because I don't know if people know and listening, but we did a sustainability entrepreneur program together called Solve School, and there were so many founders coming together. That's how we know each other, and that gave me so much hope, because I feel like there's so many people out there that are setting up businesses, organizations that actually do really care. So I think surrounding yourself with people that are on the same mission as you, that momentum gets sped up, and just collaborating with more people like we're doing today it makes you have more hope. So anyone listening, we're all in this together.
Yeah, we are. Cool. Before we wrap up, is there anything you would like to add, or some content like a film, a book, or YouTube channel you'd like to share with our audience?
Yes, I've got quite a few. I would say for me, because I spoke a little bit about food and clothing. So I mentioned The Game Changer. And Cowspiracy, and then also The True Cost on Netflix. It's to do with the fast fashion industry. I've checked that out. But then also, I think in terms of resources as well, like if you want to download food apps like Too Good To Go or Olio, that's really good for food waste. And finally, something which, to be honest, I think I definitely need to learn. I've learned when we're recording this, I've learned more and more about like environmental injustice, and talking about like Black Lives Matter and having systematic racism within the environmental scene. I think, to be honest, it's something which I wasn't that aware of. I was quite naive to being white. I didn't really have that much knowledge. So I've learned a lot of the Yikes podcast. They talk about intersectional environmentalism. And I think that's super important, and we need to talk more about that and sustainability. I didn't mention anything today because I'm still learning, but yeah, I would say Yikes podcast is really good. You guys should check them out. And also webinar of, I don't know how to say it, so I'm going to spell it. YHXTNESS. They do some really cool YouTube stuff. So there's a lot of resources, but also if you ever want any more resources or support, then just pop on my channel at Energisewithem and drop me a DM, or just look for my content. I try and share as much resources so you guys can go away and learn for yourself. So yeah, there's a lot out there. There's a lot of stuff
so that's plenty of stuff you just shared, and plenty of really good stuff. And you're right, it's important to bring up a lot of these issues, including the Black Lives Matter movement. I mean, I'm just going to also say a quick thing here, and I think one thing that we tend to overlook is that a lot of the environmental impact that we're seeing in the world, and that's having really big detrimental impact on population, tends to be in countries that are at disadvantage, in sub-Saharan Africa and such regions where, you know, people of color are the first to bear the brunt of a lot of our consumption patterns. So I think that's definitely something that is important to notice. And yeah, you mentioned a whole load of great resources to have a look at and follow. And I think if people want to find you, and I think they should follow you on Instagram and have a look at your YouTube. So that's Energisewithem, Energize with an S, English Energize. And yeah, thank you so much for coming today. It was great to have a chat. And
thank you so much for having me. I really enjoyed it. Hopefully I didn't speak too fast and too much energy. But yeah, thanks for having me.
That was really great. Thanks. Bye, everyone. Till next time.
Bye.